As always, this is Sex with Everyone, and I am your host, Riley. Today, we are talking with somebody who is so fucking rad. She was my first van life friend that I met on the road, and doing her own thing as I was doing my own thing, and we connected. We connected in Asheville, and then we ended up traveling for a few days together, and today we are in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and she just cracks me up to no end. I love her so much. Trigger warning, we do end up touching on abortion, and it's all very positive, nothing graphic, but for those who may be sensitive to that particular topic, just letting you know that that is in like the last third of the conversation. So quick disclaimer for that one, but yeah, my friends, my family, please join me as I talk about sex with Nora. It has begun.
Red light means go.
Red light means go.
Podcast, the opposite of streetlights. Red means go.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This is awesome.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
Yeah.
It's my first podcast.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, I know that you were having another podcast later in your adventure.
Yeah, possibly, but about like having type 1 diabetes. So this is probably going to be, I assume, a little different.
Yeah.
Like
Just a tad.
Just a smidge. Yeah, so you can have my podcast virginity.
Yes.
Topical.
Just what I've always wanted.
Yes.
So just tell me your story.
Okay.
Where do you want to begin? Because I genuinely don't know anything about it.
Okay. My life story is a sexual being?
Yeah.
Okay. And just like, well, I lost my virginity at 17 and a half. I remember it was my half birthday. Because I thought that was impactful in the way that you think everything about losing your virginity is impactful. And I do remember the experience. I was dating a guy who lived down the street from me, which makes it sound really wholesome. But it wasn't, in that he was like 3-ish years older than I was. He had gone to my high school, but he might have been a senior when I was a freshman. No, I think he graduated before I got to high school. So he was like, whatever that makes that, 4 years older than me school-wise. And then like didn't go to college, which I come from like very education-focused, pretentious DC. So like not going to college is like, ooh. And he was at the time, I don't even know if he was working, but he was playing a lot of like computer video games, and also turns out he was an alcoholic, which was very fun for me at like 17. And I remember the experience. He was very worried because I had like a drink or two, and so afterwards he was like, "Are you sure you were sober and consented to that?" And I was like, yeah, I consented to it. But I remember in my head the very first thing I thought after, I guess, what constituted technically losing my virginity was, now I can sleep with other people. So, that, I suppose, was a bit of foreshadowing about my, I'm not going to say lack of moral compass when it comes to sex, just a moral compass that I would say is calibrated a little different.
Yeah.
The second person I ever slept with was his brother.
Nice.
Yeah, some time later, and they were all sort of in the same friend group, and we got really drunk one night, like months after he and I had broken up. But so there was a time in my life where the only people I had slept with were brothers, and I was like, "Ooh, we gotta sleep with more people." I did, so it's okay. And yeah. I went through, I don't know, the general sort of learning experiences that, I guess, like, cis-het women are subjected to, where,
Like what?
like, you know, being nervous about, but wanting to be fingered at some point because it's like a advancement in your sexual career by, in retrospect, what is like teenage boys who literally don't understand anything about like giving a woman pleasure, etc. Right. But yeah, I thankfully am somebody who, so I lost my virginity at about like 17 and a half, which ends up only being relevant to me because I remember having sex on my 18th birthday, and that was the first time I had an orgasm.
Oh,
nice. So very quickly thereafter, I was like, oh, that was great. Loved that experience. I don't think I'm going to do sex that doesn't involve that for the most part. And I was like, and I really don't get people that do. And for whatever reason, I think I approached all sexual encounters, not just like straight P and V, intercourse, but anything that constitutes like, a sexual act. I don't know if like selfishly, but to the point that like, if I'm engaging in it, like I want pleasure out of it. And so even in high school, I had a lot of girlfriends who claimed, and I still think this is true when people tell me this, but claimed to really enjoy giving their boyfriends or the guys they were sleeping with or a guy they hooked up with had a blowjob as the entirety of the sexual encounter. And that to me, to this day, is like absolutely not. Like, never will I ever hook up with someone where the end result is me, or the main sexual act is me giving them a blowjob and them orgasming and I'm done. It's different, I think, when you are in a long-term relationship and, that situation is different because I see oral sex as like one person performing for the other person. And that's, an act of sort of sexual kindness that I find infinitely more intimate than sex. Sex is two people enjoying a sexual encounter at the same time.
Yeah.
Oral sex is only one person is truly getting sexual enjoyment. Now, when you're with a long-term partner and somebody you care about, like providing pleasure to somebody you care about, great. Like, I get the idea of satisfaction out of that. But blowing a stranger?
I see. Yeah.
I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Like, blowing your little high school boyfriend who, like, won't even treat you with the respect to call you his girlfriend or be seen in public with you? Like, no. Yeah. And I'm surprised to find, still, I've got some friends now who are in their, like, late 20s or early 30s, who, like, when dating guys, will perform oral sex before having sex with the person. And that, to me, is so illogical. Why would I blow someone if I don't even know if they're good and bad?
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know them that long. There's something exceedingly intimate about putting somebody's genitalia in your mouth, to me. And like, yeah, I don't know, some dude I've been dating for like 2 or 3 weeks if I haven't had sex with them, I'm not putting your penis in my mouth. I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we got off on a road about my feelings about blowjobs, but them's my feelings about blowjobs. So there you go. Yeah. Yeah.
Was that, like, when you were still in high school / college and discovering the sexual world and you and your friends, both doing that, like, I find you orgasming and deciding that that's, like, such a focus for you so early in your sexual experience, like, pretty uncommon for women specifically. So did you have conversations about that with your girlfriends? Like, did you find that to be weird with your partners, your sexual partners? Like, did they have commentary about that?
Yeah, so it's definitely something I talked about with my girlfriends. And I do. I agree. It was certainly uncommon. That didn't seem to be the norm. And again, I found it strange that a lot of my closer girlfriends at the time were having sort of a lot of sex, but not orgasming. and didn't seem to think that that was a priority. Figuring that out, wasn't a priority. And I haven't been, like I've always sort of also been aware of the statistics that I think are somewhat common. I don't know how common, but that it's, that there's a lot of women who rarely orgasm, have never orgasmed, all of those things. I just found it strange that it wasn't like they didn't have any sexual goals to figure that out.
Yeah.
That it was just like, oh, well, like, I know this level of pleasure exists. It's talked about all the time. It's never happened to me. Oh, well, moving on, but I'm going to keep having sex. Blew my mind. And equally, I have gotten sort of surprise from partners. And as you can imagine, again, cishet men, a lot of dudes really thinking that this means like that they are the shit. It's like they...
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They made me orgasm. And I'm like, it's cute that you think that was simply work on your part. That it didn't involve work on my part.
Right.
Both in the act and then also just the general understanding of like what my body needs. And also, I think being in a place of comfort with my own body and with sex that I'm able to do that. Which I think I'll also, certainly admit, I think I'm very lucky in that way. Like, there has to be, to some extent, like a physical aspect of it that maybe makes it easier. Mm-hmm. And also, I guess, like, privileged with I was going to say good mental health, but specifically only in this context, let's be clear. But, like, good mental health around my, like, sexual life, mm-hmm. that I'm able to do that. And also, very lucky and privileged that I have experienced little to no sort of sexually related trauma, which, again, we know statistically is kind of rare. Yeah. The situations I've been in that I found myself uncomfortable or found myself doing things I didn't want to do. The few times it's happened. Two, it's usually not it's usually not like ahead of the act. It's usually like at least during or after where I'm like, that wasn't a great choice. I don't like the choice that I made, but I don't think I can think of a time where I was ever pressured into doing something, especially sexually, that I would say was like against my will. Yeah. I think I've just occasionally, which is part of growing up, made decisions that I was like, ooh, not a good choice. Yeah, yeah. Noted. Yeah. Like, won't be doing that again in the future. Lucky and or privileged in a lot of those things, sort of as it comes to sexual stuff. But yeah.
So have you had a lot of or any like pushback from partners when you are trying to prioritize your own orgasm, like, or especially for, if you've had any hookups or anything like that? Like, have you had any like weird negative reactions to that?
I don't think so.
That's awesome.
Because I do think there's a thing among men that they really take pride in, and I quote, like quote unquote, making a woman orgasm, as if it is like entirely on them. So I think being vocal about making sure that they don't finish first so I can like mm-hmm. get mine before they get theirs. Mm-hmm. Because like I'm all about mutual pleasure. Like when I say that I'm selfish in that I'm making sure I get mine, but not, I think if two people have sex, the standard outcome should be both people orgasm. Yeah. That's not always going to happen. But yeah, so for the most part, I've never gotten any negative pushback. There've definitely been people, the sex hasn't been great. No, I would say easily in the last 10 years, I don't think I've had sex so bad that I didn't come. I'm not going to say I've orgasmed every single time I've had sex, because sometimes you're like in a weird headspace or like just really physically tired. Sure. Or honestly, sometimes if I have an edible like too late at night and I'm like high over, my body's like, woo, I don't feel anything. You can keep trying, but it's not gonna work. So yeah. I've never had pushback. I have had partners who've had fun with it. I had a partner once who, we were long distance. And so one weekend I went to go visit him. He wanted to see how many times he could make me orgasm in a weekend. And I think it was something like over 20, like it might have been 30. It got to the point where I was like, I know this is like a fun game for you, but
I hurt.
I was like, I don't want to have sex.
Yeah.
You don't want to have sex anymore. And then I have also slept with a guy, and we were just very sexually compatible, who my orgasming made him orgasm.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it was like, and more than, this wasn't like a one-time thing, very frequently. And he wouldn't even have to, like, move.
Yeah.
Simply, like, him being inside me when I came would make him come. And so it was like,
That's so hot.
Yeah, it was so great because, like mutual benefit, extreme.
Yeah.
And it was like, and it's also this, like, really lovely, like, shared moment in that way, which is like how great, like, my pleasure gives you pleasure, like, fucking dope. That's awesome. Yeah. So yeah. I also find that I'm fairly good at having sex with people I'm sexually compatible with. I don't know if that is just, I don't know if it's because I'm, like, sexually compatible with a lot of people. I don't think so. But I think I'm a very good read on people I'm going to be sexually compatible with. Mm-hmm. Downside to that, those people are sometimes shitty fucking human beings, and you get like dick blindness, right? Like, good sex will make you stupid and will make you stay in a relationship. And you'd think, like, okay, well, if you, like, generally orgasm every time you have sex, like, shouldn't that keep you from thinking, like, oh, this is good sex I have to hold on to? And, like, yeah, sure, logically, but, like, when, I don't know, when your vagina is doing the thinking, it's like, yeah, I don't know about sex with other people. I know sex with this person that I'm having sex with right now is good, and I would like to keep doing that. And I'm like, but they're a trash human. My vagina's like, I don't care. That's not my, it's not my wheelhouse. So yeah. I've definitely stayed in relationships longer than necessary because of good sex. So.
Was by the time that the relationship was, like, actually ending because they're terrible and all the things, like, does that affect your libido or your sex with them?
Libido, yes. Sex, no. So I was dating somebody for 5 years, which was easily 3 years too long of a relationship. Oof. At the very least.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things we had to, like, break up 5 different times. And the breakups weren't even like, we break up and then, like, 2 days later get back together. No, we would break up for, like, months at a time. And then I remember one time I, like, ran into him at the grocery store, and, like, 4 months after we broke up, like, burst into tears. Like, we went out to dinner and got back together. So, like, it was dumb. But by the end, because again, 5 years. So, like, sex was a sure bet. Like, with that person, there was almost never a time I didn't orgasm. That said, by the end, I had no desire to have sex with them because it was just so fraught with other things. Mm-hmm. And sex to me has always been like a, you know, I think as I've gotten older, I've been better about not correlating emotional stuff with it every time.
Yeah.
But I think it's true that, you know, it affects our brains in like a basic human kind of a way where, you know, like, if you have sex, especially good sex with somebody, you release chemicals that's like bonding. Like, barnacle to that person.
And then your brain's like, it means something.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, mate. Yeah. And you're like, please, no, I don't want to. yeah, the relationship itself had gotten so bad, and there was so much other emotional stuff that even though sex was good every time, and I knew we would both finish, I literally had no desire to have sex with him. And in fact, the relationship was so bad and affecting my mental health that, like, it wasn't like I didn't want to have sex with him, but, like, I wanted to have sex with other people. I just, like, didn't want to have sex.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So my sexual success does not always tie in with my libido. Yeah, that was definitely a thing.
And you mentioned that you were in a long-distance relationship for a period of time?
Yeah.
How was that? Like, how was y'all's, like, sex life, like, living... And you lived in a different country, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like I've done long distance other times, too. Like, general, just, like, PSA for anyone who hasn't learned this lesson at this point in life. Long distance is dumb every time. And the only caveat to that is if the long distance is for a determined period of time. This person is going off to do a 4-month job, whatever. They've got to do 1 year of school elsewhere. But, like, if it is a fixed end date, cool. But the, like, let's stay together and we'll figure it out. No, it does not matter how good that relationship is. If it's meant to be, break up, find each other later. But, like, Jesus Christ, don't ever do long distance. That is a message for anyone who ever listens to this podcast episode.
Please go into why that is.
I think a relationship requires time together. I think and not even just sexually. Truly, I think a very important part of a relationship is being in the same physical space. And that's how things grow. Or that's how things evolve in whatever direction they're going to evolve into. But talking every day on the phone, even if it is every day, if it's all day, which seems inane to me, with no definite end date for long distance, you cannot sustain a relationship on continually saying I miss you and discussing what you had for lunch.
Yeah.
That's not a relationship. And I think a relationship has to have all of the parts. It has to have, like, quality time in the physical same space. It's those moments where you're sitting next to each other and not talking that are as important as a conversation. It's just being together. So, and if you're not physically together, be fucking pen pals. Like, what, that's fine. But I don't know. It's just like it's putting a weird pause on your heart. And when it's indefinite, that I don't get. It's a bad idea. It's a terrible idea.
How long did you do it for?
Let's see. Maybe a year?
Yeah.
But it was not only indefinite, it was dumb. It was also, so let me elaborate. It was dumb because it was also like an escapist fantasy on my end. It was my first year of law school, which is like psychologically one of the circles of hell. Truly, like, and law schools often like say this to their students. They're like, look around. A lot of you are going to drop out because you can't hack it. Everything about the way law school is run, like Socratic method, they'll randomly call on you in class. It's structured to pit students against each other. And like all things, I suppose, in the legal community, it's like so unnecessarily stressful because that doesn't really prepare you in any way to be a lawyer. It just gives you all like a shared trauma that you get to laugh about later. Law school is fucking annoying and 1L is terrible. Being a lawyer is great. Being a law student is the worst. And I was long distance with somebody who literally lived on a Caribbean island. And so it meant when I got to go visit him, when I would choose to go visit him like once every 2 months, I truly got to leave behind this like cutthroat hellhole and go look at turquoise water.
Vacation. every few months.
Yeah. So it was truly like this escapist thing. And he was kind of shitty in just the way that like emotionally immature people are shitty by default. But it took me forever to end it only because I was like, but my pretty escape. And truly at the time I was like, I know I'm in law school, but like I could go work at a beach bar. Like that's my future. What? So,
how was it like, and I'm making assumptions here, but like not having dick for a few months, at a time regularly, especially if you're in school, which is crazy stressful, and like not having any kind of release until your next trip to go see him?
I think at the time, again, if I haven't stressed enough how bad first year of law school is, it's bad. I don't think at the time I saw sex as a release. And so I don't think I could have necessarily enjoyed it in that way. I was just like in a deep hole of stress and anxiety that like what I needed was like a 2-week nap and an edible and a hug. Like, I was terrible about managing my stress at the time. And I just, I also think I maybe slept with a couple other people at the time because I do believe in monogamy, but also I think I knew in that situation that it wasn't like, I don't know, we didn't live in the same country, so I didn't feel any complete obligation to be like soups loyal. But I true double standard here, because I remember getting the impression that he slept with somebody else and I was like insanely angry about it. So, I believe in monogamy from my partners, is I suppose, the completely unfair position that I take. So you should be loyal to me, but if I sleep with somebody else, it probably didn't mean anything and you should not know about it because it doesn't matter. So
is that the only time that you've cheated?
Let me think. Yes, but I have been the other woman several times.
What's that like?
I thought I would feel worse than I do.
Yeah.
All of the situations where I've been the other woman, I have not known their main partner. So it's not like I like slept with a friend's boyfriend kind of a thing.
Yeah. But you knew that they had other partners at the time and everything.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've slept with married men. So yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've definitely been aware that they have partners, and I have mostly been shocked at how much I don't feel bad.
Yeah.
Like, we're sort of taught that is like the worst thing you could possibly do.
Yeah.
And I just don't, the older I get, I just don't necessarily think that is true. Because, I don't know. I mean, we're living longer as people, and people get married pretty young sometimes, like in their 20s. And just the idea that you're going to sleep with one person for like 60 to 70 years is kind of nuts. Because there's just like, I don't know, there's a lot of people to sleep with. And sometimes sex in and of itself is the experience. Like, I know this sounds both shitty and kind of weird and trite, but like, it's like eating in a new restaurant. Like, I just sometimes you're just like, I wanted to try that dish, and I just, you only live once, which I don't think means you get to like fuck everybody you want to fuck all the time. But I don't know. I'm not entirely settled in how I feel about the idea about monogamy and its practicality.
Yeah.
Because I have, I'm in my mid-30s, and I have a lot of married friends, of course, because I'm of that age and I'm not married. And I know very few happily married couples. And this sort of dips into the idea of like making smart partner choices and like realizing that what your priorities are for a partner, in theory, in practice, may not have been a good call.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, it's sort of hard to say. Like, you're taught, like, go find a partner, be in love with that person, marry that person, and that's your person forever. And you will find your soulmate, etc. And I don't necessarily think that's true. I think there are a lot of people who feed my soul in a lot of different ways. And I also just don't know, people are so different. And I myself, I'm so many things, and I've changed so much in the last 5 years and 10 years.
Yeah.
The idea that you're expected to find somebody who's going to change with you in the same way that you change, or always be the correct person for you as you change and as they change, seems a little nuts to me. And it either means, you stick it out with somebody who's changed in a way that you don't like, or you've changed in a way that they don't like, or you don't get to fully realize the different parts of yourself and the changes you may go through because you stifle them so that you can have compatibility, or I suppose like détente in your marriage. So yeah, I don't know. But yeah, with regard to being the other woman, and to be clear, I haven't like sought out partnered people.
Oh, sure.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not like,
Yeah.
sweet ring, let's fuck. But yeah.
Yeah. How long, like, what was like the longest one of those that like...
3 years.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
How was it for you being the other woman, but also like them not being able to be your person?
That one was, I mean, truly hard. We were in love.
Yeah.
And the decision was being made because there was a child and they didn't want to break up the family.
Yeah.
And that's another sort of morality situation that I don't know where I fall on, again, because it's like a weird gray area and it's complicated. I get wanting to be there for your child all the time. I get wanting your child to be your priority. But, at the same time, if you're not living the life that makes you happy, and if you're living a lie, how is that the best thing to show your child? Like, who knows, and I don't,
Yeah.
I think, and also it's just one of those things, like, there's like nothing I can say, like, I'm not a parent and I can't make that call. But it was exceedingly difficult. So, the other one was like an occasional, over the course of maybe like 2 years, but like very sporadic.
Mm-hmm.
Very sporadic. So
That was just more about the sex.
that was
Than
1,000% about the sex. To the point that it was funny, because that person is clearly like a relationship person. They had like a ton of sexual energy, but also sort of geared towards relationships. And so occasionally, and is also the sweetest individual, but just not the sharpest knife in the drawer. So would occasionally say things that I think he thought was like flirtatious or sexy, but were like relationship things. He was like, I'm going to be free this weekend. Like, girl, maybe I'll take you out to dinner. And I was like, we don't have to do that. Like, I can buy my own fucking dinner. Like, it's not. And I think that was the time I realized that I was like, oh, so sweet. But man, if you were single, I don't even think I would date you.
Yeah.
Just because, like, I was like, oh, I'm really indifferent about the idea of, like, you taking me out to dinner. That doesn't, like, and I get, like, butterflies. I'm like, oh my God, we're gonna go out. I was just like, oh yeah, no, let's not do that. Let's just, like, can we just have more sex? Because, like, that's all I would like to do with you, frankly. So, yeah.
So more present day. I know we've talked a lot about like the beginning of your sexual life and everything. So like tell me about like what's going on recently. I mean, especially with the pandemic and everything. Like, I don't know How's that been going for you?
Not great.
Yeah.
Because I was very cautious for the first year of the pandemic. In a way, a lot of people in my city were just not. And also... Miami, right. Yeah. And also, I found people who weren't being cautious and being reckless. That was also just like a turnoff for me. So I was doing like a lot of online dating at the beginning and really trying to be like dedicated to it because dating sucks, especially online dating. The apps suck. And so I was doing a lot of like FaceTime dates, which feels really lame. I will say, like, pros to a FaceTime date. One, you can actually get a sense of some compatibility over FaceTime. And you can actually see the person, see the way they talk and move and whatever. And if they have anything that, like, gives you the ick, you can, like, kind of tell right away. Plus, I could be in sweatpants. I'd, like, fart if I needed to. I was, like, in my own home. Like, major pro. I was like, he doesn't know I fart at home. And I didn't have to, like, get ready and, like, plan a whole night and then go out. Because I am the type of person, I don't know if I'm jealous of, but I understand the idea that certain people can, like, meet somebody that they don't have an initial spark with, but, like, love can grow or whatever. And I don't mean to sound flip about that. But it's because I am not that person. I literally know within 5 minutes if, like, somebody is going to, like, if we are going to be compatible as partners in some way or not. And, like, that's not to say I'm, like, right 100% of the time. But it's been working fine so far. And I have yet to find somebody who I've met and didn't like at first. And then, like, an attraction grew.
Yeah.
Like, I guess that is true for some people. But, like, just to be clear, that is not universal. So if you are not somebody that, like, has ever felt like an attraction grew, that's fine. I don't think that happens for everybody. So, right. So the FaceTime dates were great because I could assess initial compatibility and I didn't have to waste a whole evening where I'd get ready and go out. And within the first 5 minutes, I'd be like, oh, I don't like this person.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, now I have to sit through this whole drink out. And I, like, wasted an outfit and I'm now in this place. Where, like, no one wants to be on a FaceTime date for more than, like, 20 minutes. And then when it's done, guess what? You're already home. It's amazing. So I did that a lot. But then I realized, like, it was not really going to be sustainable because, again, I think it's important to be in the same physical space as somebody else. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't going to do that for God knows how long because this is, you know, we're talking mid-end of 2020 when we're just like, oh, are we in quarantine forever?
The answer is yes.
Yeah, apparently the answer was yes. And then I, you know, did the COVID trajectory of, like, probably around that time also just hitting the deep depressions, like the biggest of sads. And then finding partnership became just an effort too far. And so I hit up a couple of people occasionally that were, like, just people I'd slept with when I, like, really felt the need for human connection. I also bought my first real big kid sex toy.
Yeah? What'd you get?
I got a rabbit vibrator.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's your first one?
Yeah.
Tell me how that was.
Fantastic. And I didn't realize I've masturbated since I was young, but always, and I saw this term once for this, and it seems the most apt, acapella, as opposed the way that sans toys. And at some point during the pandemic, I was just like, this is weird. Like, I'm a sexual person who, one, can orgasm pretty easily, and two, like, likes an orgasm. And I've never owned a vibrator of, like, any kind.
Yeah.
And I'm somebody who almost always, in order to orgasm, needs some sort of, like, clitoral stimulation. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, well, let me buy the thing that is, like, mimics a penis, because I haven't had that in a while, but also does the other thing. Mm-hmm. And it has, like, two little settings on it. It's, like, hot pink. And I was like, sure. Actually, the funny thing about it was, too, I messed up the order somehow. So I accidentally ordered 2.
Oh.
Yeah.
If you're feeling spicy.
Yeah, but it was like 2 of the exact same thing. And I was like, there's no situation in which I need 2. And so not in my girl, in like a group message to 2 of my girlfriends at the time in Miami who were single, I was like, this may be odd, but like, does anyone want a vibrator? I accidentally ordered 2. And one of my girlfriends was like, actually, yes. And she paid for it and I gave it to her. Mm-hmm. And like, I don't know, a week later, both of us were like, holy shit, this thing is amazing.
Was that her first vibrator as well?
It may have been.
Oh my gosh. Beautiful. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
She was like, girl, I just stayed up last night and had like 6 orgasms. She was like, it was the best. Like, who needs a man?
Right.
And I was like, yeah, wow. Like, yeah, I was just like, oh, wow, this really solves like a lot of problems because, you know, men are much headache and you've got a nice vibrator. And then I went after binging, I believe, the first season of like the home edit. And when I went to the Container Store to like, you know, contain everything, which like everybody went through that phase. I was also like, I'm also getting this fancy shoebox for my vibrator. Because I was like, nice, I was not keeping it. I had like sort of still had it in the plastic in like a bag next to my bed. And I was like, this seems like a degenerate way to keep my vibrator. But now it's in like a lovely little designated box that fits it perfectly. Of the very minor arts and crafts things I've done accidentally, that tops the list of the things I'm most proud of. My little vibrator box. Makes me very happy.
I love it.
And so I had the thing in the plastic sort of case molding thing that it came in, and it fit the box perfectly, but that was obviously kind of uneven. So I packed the underside of the plastic thing with, I think, like red tissue paper. So it really has like and the box is like navy and has like a little magnetic closing. So it
has a whole vibe going on.
Yeah. And the vibe is like engagement ring, but it's a vibrator. And I mean, it's not like velvet, but it has that, again, the vibe, and I'm here for it. Yeah, every time I use it, I also like have a slight giggle about the box that I made.
It's like a present every time.
Correct. I get to orgasm and have a little bit of pride in my pink dick box. So that's how the pandemic has gone.
You recently told me, and it's, if you want to talk about this, about like your change in heart about wanting to have kids. Mm-hmm. And I would love for you to talk about that a little bit, about that in general, and then also like how you think that's going to affect your dating moving forward, if it will at all.
No, it definitely will. So I literally I was always ambivalent about having kids, where I thought, you know, I think similar to what you've told me, but like, you know, I think I'd be a cool mom, but I don't ever think I explicitly thought like I don't want kids. Mm-hmm. I just think like a lot of things about partnership and family life, I just didn't. It was always one of those things that like it'll happen eventually. I was always like, yeah, I don't explicitly like want kids now, mm-hmm. but I assume kids, the way I assumed long-term partnership, would just sort of happen. Mm-hmm. Spoiler alert, that's not how that works. And I really wish somebody had told me sooner. But yeah, from one day to the next, this maternal instinct kicked in. And I was like, oh, I want to be a mom like right now.
How old were you when that happened?
Maybe 32. A month before my 33rd birthday, which also just, yeah. And it really, like, it just changed it wasn't just me feeling like, oh, I would like to be a mom. Literally, how I see kids is wholly different.
Really?
Yeah, truly. I really it used to be like, oh, like, that's a cute baby. And truly now, I'm like, can I hold your baby? I want to touch your baby. Like, I see little kids and I'm like, that's adorable. Like, I wish I could, like, take you to school and have you tell me about your day. And like,
oh my goodness.
And the idea of spending long periods of time, like with a small child, doesn't seem, completely inane or torturous to me. It sounds really ideal. And if that were my kid, like, holy shit, So yeah, it's really changed my perspective on things and really wanting all of the things. I'm like, yeah, I wish I was going on like a walk with the stroller. Like, I wish we were finding like, cognitive development toys for like the kid to learn. Like, all of the stuff is stuff I really want to do. And I definitely did not feel that way before. Interestingly enough, also because it's sort of like topical to what's going on in this country. I, about 6 to 8 months before I had this shift, did get accidentally pregnant and did get an abortion, which was interesting in and of itself because I found out I was pregnant and I was terrified in this way, not like scared of the unknown. I was terrified in this way that I couldn't articulate. And for about a couple of weeks where I was just freaking out. And my partner at the time was out of town and we were on the rocks. This is the 5-year relationship person, but we were like back together at this point and couldn't understand why I was freaking out. And I also didn't understand what was behind it. And it took about 2 weeks for it to click that I knew it was a mistake and that I did not want to have a child with this partner at all. And as somebody who's always been like aggressively pro-choice, it's weird to me that it took me 2 weeks to even think abortion to myself. And I think it was because I was at an age, at that point I was 32, that the idea that I would have an abortion, I was sort of at an age where I felt like I was mature enough and financially sound enough that like I could be a mother. It would be a fine time to have a kid was I suppose how I thought about it in the abstract. And so I never really thought about like, okay, but even if at that age you get pregnant with somebody you don't want to have a kid with, like you don't have to. And so after 2 weeks from finding out I was pregnant, it literally clicked. I was like, I don't want to have this baby. I don't want to have this baby. And like once I realized that, the terrible feeling that I'd felt for 2 weeks was like gone. I understood what it was in my gut, in my soul. I knew it was a mistake. And so yeah, I waited because my partner at the time, very traditional, raised Catholic, also older. So, and never emotionally supportive at all. So I waited because I knew he was going to be out of town for the weekend, made the appointment. And to this day, he doesn't know.
Really?
Yeah, which is why I won't like tag myself in this podcast. But yeah, so I waited till he was out of town. And then I also kind of strategically not only had the appointment and got it done, which was very easy, except involved quite a lot of vomiting. And I vomited like my favorite Trader Joe's frozen meal at the time, so I can't ever have that again because like I just remember puking it up. But I also like strategically texted him or called him in the morning and was like, I'm dealing with a lot of bleeding. I don't know what this is. I'm going to the doctor. And then was like, the doctor said, I lost it. Like this is very common before you hit 8 weeks. Like this is just very common. And that was the easiest way to do it.
Yeah.
And it felt like the kindest way to do it because that I knew I didn't want to have that kid.
Yeah.
And nothing he could have said would have changed that fact for me. And I knew, especially after so long, he would in no way be supportive. Even if his stance on abortion were different, there's no way he would have been supportive.
Yeah.
And so that was about 6 to 8 months before I had this like hormonal maternal shift in my body.
Do you think that has anything to do with it?
No. But I will say even though since that shift happened, I'm very eager to be a mother and like very soon, I do not regret that choice at all. Like I cannot, it's crazy to me how the surety with which I know I want to be a mother is the same conviction I have that that was the right call. Mm-hmm. I don't regret that choice at all. I don't wish I had that baby. Yeah. Because having a baby with that partner would have ruined my life, I think. I would still be with that person. I would certainly be tied to that person for at least 18 years. Yeah. But very likely I would have gotten engaged and gotten married to that person. I will also say, quite interestingly, because that relationship was really hard to end and we did go through those back and forths, after that, and after I had this like very profound sort of soul realization of like, I do not want to have a child with this person, the next breakup was the one. Yeah. And it was the only one that was in no way emotionally hard for me at all. In fact, I wasn't emotional in any way about it. It just was. And I had gotten the clarity I need. And I will say, I have almost always been the breakup-y. People always dump me. I have this like, I'm always like, I can fix any problem. Like, I'm a problem solver. So I'm like, our relationship's gotten bad. I can fix it, as opposed to being like, ooh, maybe just date somebody else. Like, yeah. And I've taken every breakup as a rejection, as like a reflection on me. This was truly the first time in my life I broke up with somebody and I was fine. Mm-hmm. Because I think we had done it so many times before, and I'd done all of like the iterations of trying to get over somebody. But when I knew in my soul, like I didn't want to have a kid with this person, it gave me a peace. And in that way was a gift. Yeah. Truly, I think about it. I mean, probably not every day, but whenever I do think about it, I truly believe that was a deep gift from the universe, to get me out of a relationship I shouldn't have been in anyway. And then also to not end up really like shackling myself to that situation. Yeah. I remember, because long before that, I remember there were times that relationship really taught me that there's like gut answers to things, like soul answers to things. And that like the concept of like that little voice inside, like she sometimes literally says stuff to me. And it's like, I'm not always paying attention. But sometimes she yells. Because I remember there would be times with that person, he would do something or say something, and in the infinitesimally small period of time before I was going to get upset or angry or both, and usually like hurt or whatever, there was always a moment of calm where I would say to myself, your person would never do that. Your person would never say that. And it was said, like emotionless. It was just this clarity that I knew in my soul. He would do something and I would be like, you are not my person. Like, I shouldn't be with you. Yeah. But instead, and again, it was just not even a split second before like I would have my reactive emotion of like upset or hurt, and it would start a fight, whatever it was. How much I wish I could have just like had that thought and been like, you're right. We're over. Goodbye. Yeah, deuces.
Yeah. Hindsight.
Right. But I remember it wasn't like that hidden from my consciousness either, because I remember there were times we'd get into a fight, and this is when we were living together, and I would call my mother deeply upset. And I remember saying to her, I remember specifically one night saying to her, but I probably said it on more than one occasion, I know I shouldn't be with him. I know he's not my person, but I do not have the strength to leave. I can't do it right now. And that's the thing about sort of shitty relationships, especially ones that are emotionally toxic. And especially if you're with a partner that beats you down in whatever way it is, like just emotionally, they've made you feel shitty, like you don't have any other options or whatever it is, even if they're not explicitly saying that. Like, they've made you feel shitty, so you feel weak. And they've also made you feel like you don't really have any other choices. And so it's exhausting. It's like when you have to, it's sort of the equivalent of like when you have to dig yourself out of a depression hole. When you're like, the ways to deal with my depression are like, you know, it's like, cool, I know the things I have to do. Like, I have to move my body and eat healthy, and like, I should really go to therapy. And you're like, oh, cool. I'm depressed as fuck. Like, you think I'm going to call and find a therapist right now? Like, I'm not even showering, you know, like, so, and that's what it feels like when people are in those relationships with a partner who's just really shitty to them all the time. I have one of my best friends right now, a guy, he just married his long-term partner. And she's awful. She's truly awful. She's awful to him all the time, in front of other people, constantly. Oof. And she makes wholly selfish decisions and discounts his opinion or preferences all the time. Because I've seen this before, like couples who think nagging is cute, which it's not. It's really not. That's another example. And I think I also really recognize it because I was in a similar situation where I'm like, oh, he's not going to leave. They just got married too. And I was like, ugh, it's really upsetting. Look, being single sucks, but when I see this shit with some of my friends, I'm just like, ooh, at least the only person hurting me is me. Right. So fine. I know who to blame. And I can work on that problem. Yeah. So I don't know how I ended up down that path. Oh,
that's okay.
I think, yeah. So you had originally asked about babies and then if that affects dating.
Yeah. So that's what I was going to bring it back around to is, you know, since having your baby epiphany, do you...
Baby epiphany?
Epiphany? Do you approach dating differently, or do you gauge partners differently, you know, potential partners differently, or anything like that?
Yeah, I do. And it's something that, because I've only recently gotten to the point where I am comfortable enough to, like, go out and, like, meet people in public and go to places unmasked, or as one of my friends says, just raw dogging air again. Yeah, I've been sort of unsure how to navigate that, because it's sort of a thing where, like, you know, you don't want to, like, in the first conversation be like, hey, so kids, you down with kids? You want kids? Can we have kids tomorrow? What about kids? And I don't think you have to do that. I mean, I don't think you have to do that in the first. I don't think it's something I would do in a first date or first several date. Anyway, I think it's a fair thing is really actually have the conversation of what somebody is looking for.
Yeah.
And also actually listen to them when they answer, because that's apparently equally, if not more important. Because a lot of people ask the conversation, or have the conversation, ask the question, but then straight up ignore the answer. I am guilty of this too. Mm-hmm. Where like a guy's like, I just want something casual. And women, for whatever other likely fucked up toxic reason that we've been subjected to since birth, believe I can change him. Mm-hmm. I don't know why, like, I can hazard guesses and I have enough theories, but like in our aggressive positioning and caretaker roles, that we also feel this desperate need to like fix broken men, while at the same time we like continue to allow society to raise broken, emotionally stunted men. But that's like a whole separate thing. So yeah, and so I was only recently getting to the place where I was like, okay, I'm like comfortable to like go out and date people again with this new thing in mind. Mm-hmm. And now I live in a van for 5 months. So like, we just put that whole problem on hold, which really was like a concern. I was just like, it's like, okay, I'm in a place that I know I want partnership and I would like to have a child. And I'm 35, so as like modern as we want to be, that biological clock is still a fucking thing.
Yep.
And realistically, at this point, you know, I'd like to have a child. I think it's getting to the point of unrealistic to say that I would like to have children. And I'm like getting right with that. You know, not that that's a major thing, but in my head, I've had to be like, I'd like to have a child, and that's all we're getting. So, and then I was like, shit, now I'm going to go fuck off for 5 months. I'm like losing 5 months of time to try and find that. But the other thing, I mean, the converse side of that, I was just like, yay! But I am not in a great place, a little bit physically, but almost entirely mentally, to embark on a relationship with anybody, even aside from having kids. Like, I was in like a deep burnout depression hole, which led me to want to go on this trip and figure some shit out for myself and take a little pause in my life to like get back on track or like get back to me, whatever it is. So I was like, I think it's okay. Like 5 months to be in a better place is better than not taking this trip and continuing to like bash your head against the wall with online dating in a way that's like not successful. So
inevitably, if you're in a bad place, then you're in theory probably gonna partner with not great people as well, like responding to, you know, where you're at, or you know, jump at something that isn't right for you and whatnot.
And I really do buy into the idea, I mean, not like whole cloth, but the idea of like what you put out energy wise is sort of like what you receive, because I've just found that is true. And like, maybe it's sort of like one's own personal delusion. Like you think you're getting good things because like you're in a good, happy place. But I mean, it's also just true. Like, I don't like to be around whiny, complainy, negative people.
Yeah.
And not like, I get it. Look, I've been in that place. Like, you know, I've been in shitty places, but when I have friends or acquaintances who, or I meet people who are just like that, who, you know, their default is always to complain about something. You're just like, ooh, like, I don't love that energy. I wish there was like a less woo-woo way to phrase this. And so I would like to be, even if not the best version of me, but like certainly not the broken trash version of me that I was when I endeavor to meet somebody.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and not, like I mentioned last night when we were talking, like, who's to say you can't meet people on the road either, because you're traveling the country, doing what you love, you know, and going to these bike races and doing the Ironman and all the things, right? And like, you're going to meet like like-minded people doing those things as well. So like, it honestly would not that that's your goal, and I totally respect that, of course, but like, it is totally possible that you can meet somebody during your trip in the van as well.
True. I've had a lot of people say that was likely like, oh, you're going to meet somebody hiking. And I'm super open to that, of course.
Sure.
It's the one thing I haven't really like just sort of said, like, I'm open to it, but I am trying as much as possible not to think about that.
Yeah.
Because I already feel like I've put a lot of pressure on myself for this trip to be important. And I just know I have like a bad habit of setting up goals for myself that I don't have control over, but I do blame myself if I fail at. So if I come home and I'm like, I didn't meet my fucking soulmate, you know, like, I'm really pissed. So I'm going to try to not do that. Yeah. The trip was lovely, but I didn't fall in love. So it's a fucking failure.
Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on, or we can wrap this bad boy up if you want?
I'm trying to think. Don't have long distance relationships. Don't blow people you don't know. These are my like life lessons.
Nora advice.
Nora advice. Don't date long distance. Don't blow people you don't know. My mother's standard, ladies, go to the bathroom together. Safety. Yeah, that's what I got.
Well, thank you so much. This was awesome. I really, really enjoyed this conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much for
doing
and it
was fun because, like we said yesterday, it was going to be a full surprise.
Yeah, I had no idea where this conversation would go.
Surprise!
Yeah.
Married men and abortions. I'm the Republican nightmare.
Alrighty.
Yeah, good times had by all.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah. All right.
Nora is such a delight. I really, really loved this conversation with her. Seriously though, how fucking cool is it that from the age of 18, she knew her goal was to always come when she had sex or had a sexual interaction with anybody, and that she didn't fall prey to a very, very common experience of sex being about the man always coming, or sex being over when the man comes. It's a tragedy. It's a true tragedy how often we hear stories of women in their 40s or 50s who orgasm for the first time, or have partners who have never made them come, because it's not in our culture to prioritize women's pleasure. It's about men's pleasure, right? And I just so appreciated her just fucking getting with it. And I just so respect everything about that. So anyway, I really, really love Nora, and I loved our conversation, and I hope you guys did too. So yeah, next episode, I will be interviewing Luke in Lexington, Kentucky, and he is fresh out of a relationship and grappling a lot of things within himself, and discusses what he's looking forward to next. So please stick around for that. That'll be coming out in 2 weeks. And in the meantime, stay awesome, friends.